Okay, ladies and gents, welcome back to Bar Chat Sports, part 4 of our Cheltenham Festival special. We're delighted to be joined by Gold Cup winning jockey Mark Pitman. Mark, you've been a regular at the Cheltenham Festival for many years now. What is it that makes this place so special?
Well, I think history has a lot to do with it. You've got the championship races for the year. Obviously, the best horses from England and Ireland and France, obviously, are coming over. The competition is as good as it gets. And we've all grown up wanting to have a winner at Cheltenham. So it just adds to that mystique, if you like, and the kudos of having a Cheltenham winner.
Yeah. But you rode over 300 winners, didn't you? And trained another couple of hundred, so, and including Cheltenham winners. Do you ever miss the thrill? Now you're not riding anymore.
It was such a long time ago that it's a bit like a dream now. I mean, I was lucky that I had some great horses to ride, not just Garrison Savannah, but the likes of Toby Tobias, Isha Ness, Royal Athlete. I mean, you know, there was loads of Wonder Man. We had him in his early days. And to go to the races and ride that caliber of horse always made you look forward to going out and competing. You know, I would, as a jockey myself, because it was always so difficult I had to work so hard at doing the weights. Just to go there on an also ran would have been, I couldn't have done it. So, you know, the sacrifices that you have to make are immense. And I was very fortunate enough to ride some top class horses for obviously a world class trainer.
Yeah. But when you started out in the business, you worked for David Nicholson for 3 years, and then 15 times champion Martin Pipe before you became coach jockey to your mother. That must have been a fantastic education for you in terms of what you do and what not to do with racehorses. Well,
I think at the end of the day, I'd always decided or always wanted to be a jockey, even from when I was a tiny nipper. And obviously, with my dad being a top jockey in his day, and my mother was really getting some traction in those days. And you know, I was riding racehorses from the age of, I don't know, 8 or 9 years of age. I was riding out, you know, and getting run away with most days and going flying past the rest of the string, which used to upset everybody, cause all sorts of chaos. But it was we all agreed that it was the best thing was to go away and learn your trade and get some experience that way. And David Nicholson was one of the best at the time. And to say it was a learning curve, I think would be underestimating it. The old Duke, he was tough, and you wouldn't get it. I don't think you'd get away with it today. How they did things in those days, you know, as regards how tough they were on lads, and particularly young jockeys, and whether that was to try and weed out the ones that were capable of making it and those that weren't. I don't know, but I famously remember I used to break a lot of collarbones in my early part of my career, and in those days you'd come back within 7 or 8 days of breaking a collarbone. You'd be back working, riding, etc. I mean, you just couldn't do it now. And back in those days, I used to have to ride a bike to work. And he was literally a week after breaking my right collarbone, and he saw me only having one hand on the handlebar, and he's going, "Pitman, you're soft. Leg up second lot on your own." So maybe leg up all of second lot. About 30
shit, with a broken collarbone.
It's going to be broken a week. And he's going, "You're soft. You're soft." I have got. You'll have to cut this bit out, by the way. I'm just. This is definitely not a big thing. But I remember riding. I used to ride an old horse there called Gainsay when he was in his younger days.
Oh,
And this horse used to pull. I mean, it was a mouth like a bag of hammers. And I was only 15, 16 at the time. I was only a kid. And I'm going up the gallops and I'm swinging out of this horse. And he's going. I think that's one for the editing
Mark, I think the most celebrated win that we all would remember was on Garrison Savannah, or Gary, I think you used to call him, and that was, when you in '91 when you won the Gold Cup, and coming up the hill, and you had the amazing Desert Orchid and the fellow behind you, and from memory, you jumped the last, and tell me I've got this right. The Garrison Savannah went over to the left, and you caught the tape on the inner rail. Do you remember? Do you remember that? And then he straightened up and came to the finish. What happened there? What's going through your head as you jump in the last and you're ahead in the Gold Cup? Do you have even time to think? What do you remember from that?
Well, I mean, clearly you're in the zone and you're trying to get it all right. And I'd been second in the Gold Cup the year before on Toby Tobias, and we just got chinned. I think we were up. Yeah, there's a great picture of Toby Tobias and Norton's Coin upsides at the last, and we just got chinned, and that was my first ride in the Gold Cup, and that was really tough to take. You know, you've come so close, and it's funny with reflection, and as you get older, you look back on things that you've done and how you've ridden the race, and was there anything I could have done differently? And it's not something I've spent years pondering over, but do you know what? I've come to the conclusion that in that race, tactically, I did everything right. I went right the way around the inner, produced a horse at the right time, did everything right, and got beat. And sometimes in sport, you can do everything right and get beat. And the hardest thing is to accept that. Certainly, when you're living it and you're in with it, and you're right amongst it. But I think as time goes by, you sort of reflect and you go, well, do you know what? We gave it our best shot, and we just came up short. But with Garrison Savannah, we went there with, I can't say a lot of expectation, because he was coming back from injury. He'd only had one run that season where he'd been second at Haydock, and then had been lame for several months. So it was real touch and go whether he was going to get there. And I remember walking into the parade ring, literally standing there with the owners and my mother. And normally we'd have sort of formulated a plan of how plan A would go. And then quite often plan A went out the window and you'd go to plan B or C. But we hadn't really discussed this because he wasn't really confirmed a runner until the morning of the race. And she famously said, which I didn't know at the time, as I come out and I said, well, what are you thinking? What do you think I should do here? She said to me, do the same as last year, just don't get beat. Which she said on reflection was a fairly harsh thing to say, bearing in mind that the horse had such a troublesome preparation. But it was amazing, when you deal with these horses week in, week out, and you get to know them so well. I got on him and he felt great. And I've always said when his feet touched the turf, he literally grew an inch, and he just felt so full of energy and like fight. It was incredible. And I basically rode a very similar sort of race to the year before, right down the paint, just in behind the leaders. I think we were following Arctic Call, I think it was, for I can't really remember, but I think it was him. He was making the running. He's made a couple of bad mistakes, and we've come around him after a circuit. And we're going down the back. You just jogged my memory. We're going down the back to the ditch, which is halfway down the back at Cheltenham. And I swear to God, I have never been over a fence as fast as and as perfect as that, if it makes sense. We met it spot on. We were in perfect, and he flew it. And it just enabled me I landed in a position where I could just take a momentary hold of him. And I just went, whoa, son, just got that half a breath into him. And I thought, whoa, I'm in a great spot here. And I'm just following around. There was Peter Scudamore. I think he was on Celtic Shot, and I'm following him. We go up the hill, jump the one going up the hill, swing down, and I think I'm a second, third, right down on the inside. Peter Scudamore's on Celtic Shot. The first one coming down the hill, he absolutely made a right Horlicks of it. I have flown it again. Because the one thing he could do, Gary, was just the most unbelievable jumper. And I've landed in front. And I've gone, oh my God, I'm in front. I'm in front. I do not want to be in front this far out. And I literally dropped anchor. I've just gone, whoa, I've got to just take a grip and let him coast down the hill. And my mother's always said in interviews that she thought it was an incredible piece of cool riding. We'd taken a hold of him there. It was actually me thinking, Jesus, if I get beat on this, she's going to bollock me. So I literally took a hold of him, just let him coast down the hill. And then as you swing for home and you're running towards, you turn for home. And I remember thinking, right, son, it is now or never. And I gave him a kick in the belly, and he just woofy flew. We'd gone, but interestingly, come in Desert Orchid. Was he in that race, Desert Orchid? I can't remember. Anyway, I can't remember. But
Desert Orchid.
I remember turning for.
Yeah,
but he would never really perform.
Yeah. I know you mean. He wasn't really in it.
He'd always want to go right-handed, and that was one of the reasons I think he was so good round Kempton.
Yeah.
Cheltenham was never really his course. And anyway, I remember turning for home and I said, right, it's now or never. And I just sent him. And then the French horse, the fellow, was quite a way away from me, but I could just knew he was there in my peripheral vision. And then you're just going down to the last, and you just, from 25 strides out, you're just looking for that perfect stride, but you're just riding at this fence like it's not there. And I remember going at it, and I had to do the same on Garrison Savannah the year before. Toby Tobias the year before. And you just ride at it, and then you just fire them. And fortunately, both times that they came up, and without any shadow of a doubt, if they'd have missed it, they'd have been digging us both out with a JCB. It would have been catastrophic. He flew it, and then we landed over the last, and you're right, there's a tape halfway up the running, and he's just looked left because the running rail, obviously finishes, and you have the white tape. And he just lugged left. He didn't actually clip it, but he lugged left, and I've managed to pull him right again. Tried to, obviously get his balance up, and then just drive for the line. And I could sense the French horse was there, but he was a good way away from me. And it was one of those, you go past the post and you go.
Did you know as soon as you went over?
No, didn't know at all, because he wasn't close enough to me. He was too far away.
Yeah.
And afterwards, when we were pulling up, I think it was Adam Condrat, I'm sure it was. He came over and we shook hands, and I went, "What do you think?" He's going, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "What do you think?" I went, "Well, I don't know either." And I remember coming back down it's one of the best, I think, walkways in racing, where you come back down all the crowds, and the crowd are going mental. And and then they go, you're just waiting for that photo finish, and there was there was a picture of when they announced it that we'd won, and I can't really describe it other than like being plugged into the mains. I mean, it was just like this electricity, and I just literally leapt out of the saddle up in the air.
Yeah.
And then it all goes crazy, and the press and crowds, and it was.
Well, you've got Mark. You've got a family history of this. Your dad did it with crisp and nearly gave everyone a heart attack. Corbière winning '83 was nearly caught, wasn't he? So this was nothing new to the Pitman family. Just giving yourself a heart attack at the end of a big race.
Well, absolutely, yeah. We've all been there, and sometimes we've been on the right side of results, and sometimes we've been on the wrong ones.
Yeah.
You just hope that you had, but obviously, talking about the Gold Cup, we'd been second the year before, and it really did feel as like one for the team. It was. I don't know. My dad had been second on Pendle in the Gold Cup and had never won a Gold Cup, and I just, you don't really think about the expectations of other people and what they expect of you. It's more the pressure you put on yourself to perform and come up with the results. And it was just a massive moment for us.
You touched on it earlier, Mark, where you were saying you follow the paint. Whenever I think of your mum's horses, Corbière was the same. I'm the same year Artistic Prince was, Stiggy's horse was running. Your mum always had that. She always just, I think I hear her say, stay out of trouble, stay on the inner rail. You were always sort of 4 or 5 back, settle into your stride. You did that. She did that with all of her horses. Was that the brief that she used to give you before you went out? Because that seemed like a similar trend she had.
I think that's pretty much our default tactic. Pop out the gate, sit third, fourth, fifth, and then see how it pans out. I mean, what people perhaps don't appreciate is it's the pace of the race that dictates where you're going to sit. If you jump off and everybody's going flat to the mat, you got to go, well, I can't, this is crazy. I've just got to drop in a bit and take my time. Conversely, if everybody's sitting on their hands waiting for somebody else to make the run in, I had absolutely no problem in saying, okay, boys, I'm off. I'll make the run in. So you've got to ride your own race. And you've got to ride your own horse as well, obviously.
But
and that
Mark,
was one of the benefits of obviously being stable jockey and being in there absolutely every single day. You've got to know them. You've got to know how they like to be ridden. If one liked to catch one, or if one liked to be in front. And I think over the years, with the winners that we had, it sort of proved those points, really.
Mark, we've talked about you grew up in a famous racing family with your dad and your mum, and the first woman trainer to train a Grand National winner with Corbière, and then all the Gold Cups and so on. She must have been a hell of an influence over your career.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think, having worked with her for so long and over so many years as a jockey, and then as assistant before I set up training my own string, you get the way she thinks, the way she feels, and so much of this training racehorses, it's not how much you gallop them. It quite often it's what you don't do. Anybody can go out and gallop a horse. Anybody can, exercise one, feed one. But it's being able to look at them and feel what they're feeling, sense what they're feeling. Are they eating well? Do they look well? Have they got a spring in their step? Noticing the little things picking up on the little habits, because absolutely, and then, particularly when I was training my own horses, those horses were as individual to me as people. I knew them better than I knew people, if that makes sense. I used to know their habits, the way they thought, the way that I used to know what they did. Something like Garrison Savannah, who I used to ride out every day, I knew what he was thinking before he'd thought it. And that might sound daft, but I could see a situation and I knew what he was going to do before he did. But just a very quick story about him. He was so cute. Like I say, I used to ride him every day. Once a year, he'd drop me. He'd throw me off. And it would literally be, you couldn't choose when it was, but once a year he'd do it. He'd drop his shoulder, whip round or something and sit me on my backside. And it was almost him saying, don't ever forget, I've got that bit of ability to do that.
I'm the boss.
And then you had somebody like, I'm digressing slightly, but Toby Tobias, for instance, completely opposite to Garrison Savannah, and that he was incredibly talented, but he was very fragile in his mind. And he was Gary, you could gallop that and he'd come out the next morning wanting more. If you galloped Toby Tobias an ounce too much in a piece of work, he wouldn't eat for 3 days and he'd stand there staring at the wall, sulking. He literally, and you go, you big soft tart, and you go, oh, I'm a bit fragile, sorry about that, so you had to get that type of horse. You've got to get them coming out every morning thinking they are world champion. They got to come out going, come on, world, I'm up for it, That's the mental side of training these horses. It's
an art.
I think it's absolutely an art, and you for us certainly. I mean, people would say you'll probably find trainers that just say, right, this is the regime. They fit into the regime, and the good ones will come out the other end, and the others will fall by the wayside. They won't be good enough. But we always try to almost individually tailor our training methods to the horses.
We had John Joe on end of last week, and we got talking with him and AJ about technology in the game. And they said exactly the same thing. They said at the end of the day, yes, they like the insight and the statistics on conditioning and so on and so forth. But in reality, it's about the horsemanship. It's about having that relationship with the horse, and nothing would trump that ever.
No, and I think it is almost that sixth sense. It's the all the stats in the world can tell you that everything's fine, but generally, if in your gut, if you felt that it wasn't, it probably wasn't.
You're normally right.
If that makes sense. So yeah. I mean, I'm all for technology. Don't get me wrong. I was a big advocate of it, and we used to use all sorts of things from, all sorts of things for diagnosing problems. I mean, people don't appreciate that these racehorses, they get the charmed life. They really do. I mean, we as people, we get something wrong with us. You're lucky if you get seen in weeks. They get an issue and they got a vet there in seconds. The state of the art hospitals and treatment. I mean, they really do get a very good life, to be fair. Anyway, I digress.
That's all right. Talking of the modern game, Mark, would you be able to? I don't know if you can. This could be a question you might not be able to answer. But is there a horse? You said how special Garrison Savannah was. Is there a horse in the modern racing that you could compare him to?
Very difficult to know how we'd fit in today with a Galloping Champ or a Best Mate or even a Burial Lad. I mean, Burial Lad was probably hard to say, but you know, I only got to ride him. I never got to ride him in a race because I was too young. But I got to ride that horse when he was an old horse, and we were trying to bring him back, and I think he was about 12 at the time. And this won't make you a podcast, but anyway, I'll tell you anyway. He was 12, and in Lambourne we've got what they call, Rod will remember it. It was the bowl where it was about a mile round gallop.
Yeah.
So you jump off, you go around a mile, and then you come up and you go up another mile and finish up what we call the back of the hill. Most horses, I would say, probably 99% of horses would do one lap of the bowl and up the back of the hill. Burial Lad, because he was such a big lump of a thing, I remember one morning, which is when we were just bringing him back for the last time, she said, right, I want you to do 2 laps of the bowl and then go up the back of the hill. And she said, once you've done 1 lap, I'm going to jump another horse in with you who's going to follow you around for the other lap and then join you when you go up the last 4 furlongs at the back of the hill. So I went, okay. So off I've gone, and I haven't just moseyed round there. I've got what I call a nice swinging canter for a mile. This other horse has jumped in with me, followed me round for a mile. We've turned up the back of the hill and quickened it, and I have got powered up to the top. So we get there. She says, what do you think of that? I says, well, that felt great. I said, he's absolutely flown up there. I says, but that other horse, I said, it's worked shocking. I said, it never got within 10 lengths of me. This was on the Wednesday. On the Saturday, the horse that had worked shocking came out and won the Philip Corn Saddler Gold final at Newbury. That's how good Burial Lad was.
Yeah.
You know, he got a mile further, given 2 stone to this other horse, and absolutely beat it out of sight in a piece of work. And I never came off the bridle. And the other one comes out on a Saturday and wins a big race. That's how good he was.
Yeah.
But anyway, in answer to your question, sorry, I've digressed again.
Mark, just on the start of a big race at Cheltenham, when you're down there with the horse, you're collecting your thoughts, you get in the line. What's going through your head? And did you have any specific superstitions or rituals that you would carry out for luck?
Magpies was ridiculously one of the things. I always used to hate seeing one magpie, because I don't know if you know the saying, it's like,
Yeah,
one
saluted.
for sorrow, 2 for joy, or something like that.
Yeah.
And once we got past 2, I didn't care. But I always used to hate seeing one magpie, although I know it's absolutely bonkers. I mean, people have a lot of the jockeys used to have, put on one sock, always put the right sock on, or you'd have a favourite pair of boots, or Graham Thorner, for those of a certain era, who was champion jockey, when he won the Grand National, he always wore the same pair of pants after that Grand National. He wore them until they were literally a piece of elastic. That's what my father tells me anyway. But no, I didn't really have many superstitions. As regards being nervous, I don't think he got I don't think he really got nervous, because it was always trying to get. I can only speak for myself, but particularly on big days, if you're going to Leicester on a wet Monday, and I've been absolutely wasting proverbials off to make the weight, I could be asleep on the benches, literally, when they're shouting jockeys, put your hats on. But for those big meets, for those big days, literally, it was almost like it was a subconscious thing. So when I used to get up in the morning, I would be thinking to myself, right, I've got to be peaking for 3:30 this afternoon. And I always used to, all the staff, and I probably would admit to it, the angrier I was, the better I was, if that makes sense. So by the time I went out to ride in the Gold Cup, I was absolutely at fever pitch. I was calm, totally calm, but I was ready to do whatever needed doing. I don't know if that makes sense, but it
No, I
was,
get it.
Yeah, it does.
Sure.
you know, people
Sure.
talk about being in that zone and that focused, and you just don't feel anything. You're just almost robotic. I think, you know, you're going out there and you're so alert and so switched on, and everything is like tuned to the as much as you possibly can be. You know, I don't really know how much more to explain it than that. But
No,
you don't feel nervous. You
No.
don't have any nerves. You've got to
Did
go
you-
out there. You've got to remember when you're going out there and riding with these lads, Peter Scudamore, Richard Dunwoody, Graham McCaw. You know, these were top riders, and they were hard men. Plus the Irish were coming over, and if
You can't afford to have any nerves, really.
you can show no weakness, absolutely no weakness, because if you do, they will exploit that, and you are beat before you even got out on the racetrack. And I can tell, if you've got time, I'll tell you another one for the cutting ring floor. Very quick story. When I was a £7 claimer, young £7 claimer, I was riding around, I think it was Toaster or somewhere like that. Was it? Anyway, it doesn't really matter where it was. So I'm riding around, and Peter Scudamore, who was a bit older than me, you know, champion jockey, well established, he absolutely put me through the rails, just smashed me through the rails. So I've come back in the weighing room, and I'm only a kid. I'm sort of 16, 17. I'm going, what are you doing? And he just sat there like, I'm Peter Scudamore, I don't really give a stuff, you know, go away, son.
Yeah.
So I've gone away, and I thought, right, okay. But I don't know what it was, 3 weeks later, the perfect opportunity came where I could do exactly the same to him. And I've absolutely, I think he was shouting for some room somewhere. So I just opened the door a little bit, gave him half a length, and then I shut the door on him, bang. And I actually hopped him off the rails. He has come back in, and he's thrown his saddle on the floor, and he's barking, how you doing? You learn to ride. I went, hey, hold on a minute. I remember, do you remember 2 weeks ago, you did exactly the same to me? And I said, if you want to play those games, absolutely fine. I've got no problem. I said, but two can play that game. And do you know what? I never had a day's problem with him after that. And it was literally like that. You didn't have to be Billy Big Balls putting everybody through the rails left, right, and centre, but you had to stand up for yourself. And if you didn't, you were toast.
What would be your funniest moment that you recall?
But for publication,
Give us both, Mark. Give us both.
Well, there's one or two. I can talk about saunas. I can give you a few stories about saunas. But there was one year, I tell you what it was. It was when Royal Athlete and Garrison Savannah were running in the Sun Alliance. They were both due to run in the Sun Alliance at the festival. And we'd taken them away and done a piece of work with them at Peter Cundall's Gallops, where we always used to go a lot of the time before Cheltenham, about 10 days before Cheltenham. And Royal Athlete had absolutely blown Garrison Savannah out of the water, blown him out of water, finished 20 lengths clear of him.
No.
So I had to make a choice. Do I ride Royal Athlete, who looked
Stay
like
forever.
He was the better horse, looked like he was the better horse at the time, but was a horrible jumper. I mean, when I say he used to get about 3 inches off the ground and then hit it with his head, I mean, that's what he used to do in his early days. He had a mouth like a bag of hammers. I mean, you might as well pull against the doorpost. Or do I ride Garrison Savannah, who was a brilliant jumper, but possibly not as good as Royal Athlete at that particular time? So I thought, well, if Royal Athlete jumps around, he'll win. The only problem was if he switched on, he was likely to go and kick one out the ground. So what happens? We jumped about 6 coming down the hill at Cheltenham. Royal Athletes punched through one, turned A over T. I've gone over his head, pulled the bridle off. I'm walking back up the track, and just to get into about where the last fence is, and who's coming up between 2 was Garrison Savannah with Ben Dahan goes and wins the race. Whether that's funny or not, I don't know. But
Not at the time.
Remember that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, listen, we've been on longer than we thought, and I'm so it was so brilliant to hear some stories from your days in racing. I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your insight and telling some great tales. Well, hopefully we'll be able to catch up again with you soon. We'll be sure to send you the link through so you can see this up on. It'll be on YouTube, on TikTok, and various all the other usual socials. But thank you very much, mate. Thanks for joining us, and we'll hopefully catch up with you soon. We might actually see you. If you're going to be there on Friday, we might even see you.
Friday.
Well, it's been a pleasure, guys, and you all stay safe. That's the main thing.